Ο κύριος Νίκος Πασάς είναι Έλληνας, αλλά όπως ξέρετε με μεγάλη και διακεκριμένη διεθνή ακαδημαϊκή δραστηριότητα. Προσωπικά θα ήθελα να τον ακούω συχνότερα να παρεμβαίνει στο δημόσιο διάλογο. Για έναν επιπλέον λόγο, ξέρετε ότι η βασική του ακαδημαϊκή ειδίκευση, το πεδίο του είναι το φαινόμενο της διαφθοράς και η αντιμετώπιση του. Κύριε Πασά, έχετε τον λόγο.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Η παρέμβασή μου θα είναι στα αγγλικά. Μπορούμε να κάνουμε τις ερωταπαντήσεις στη συνέχεια ελληνικά, αν θέλετε. Thank you so much for the honor of serving on this outstanding panel with such a distinguished audience. If we can have the slides on, I will give you first the main points and then explain some solutions that I propose. The first one, and we are exactly on the same wavelength with everyone who spoke before, we need to rebuild trust. We need to have policies implemented and succeed. But this cannot be done without integrity. This cannot be done with values in action. And for this reason, anti-corruption is a strategic site, is a strategic way of intervening and fixing a lot of the ills that we have. Secondly, the crisis we have in Greece is painful, but absolutely not unique. And crisis does create a lot of uncertainty and pain, but it is also an opportunity for reform, an opportunity that we need to grab. And this raises the need to become more pragmatic and to measure effectiveness in what we want to do. Let me give you an example of the governance crisis that we have also in European institutions. Here you can see that from 51% of trust in the European Union, its institutions, we go all the way down to 31, and then it goes to 41. Right now, I hope it's not a dead cat bounce. But the point is that even at 41% trust in the European Union, it is not very strong. The yellow line, the orange line, is actually trust in national governments, and that is also on the decline and even lower. So both at the national and EU level, we've got a crisis of trust. The next slide is about the Greek economy and how it really dropped substantially, more than 25% after the big crisis. We are familiar with all of these effects. We know that there is inequality, but inequality notwithstanding, you can see that even the privileged see their incomes drop very substantially. Everybody loses, everybody sinks, everybody is a victim of the problems that we have. And of course, everybody wants to get out of here, and you can see that the brain drain is exemplified by 37% of Greeks wanting to get out of Greece right after the decision in the summer to enter into the latest memorandum. Here are World Bank Institute's results on the entire planet. And you can see several measures of governance that we have here. Anti-corruption, rule of law, regulatory quality are among them. And you can see that the trend is low to flat. No progress despite billions of dollars and very substantial resources devoted to improving governance. We're not getting anywhere. So there are challenges that we need to be aware of. And not only in Greece, but we have to learn the lessons from the international environment. We do have problems with political leadership, and it is rather disappointing to see that a series of governments made all kinds of promises and public declarations, and none of them delivered. It's the Greek saying, comes to mind, όπου ακούς πολλά κεράσια, πάρε και μικρό καλάθι. Constant changes in institutional arrangements, rush decisions, sometimes illicit practices, and lack of professionalism. We do have a lot of external pressures, which can provide an incentive, but we also have intervention fatigue. Legal change must take place, but law reform is insufficient, absolutely not enough. And part of the problems that we have internationally with not so good success against corruption is that we do not take into account context. And let me visualize this with the next slide. Here what you see is a bunch of people abusing a car. And you can sit comfortably and say, the rule is that you cannot have that many people in this car, and if you violate this rule, rightly, you will be penalized and the car is going to be taken away. But if these people are coming from a place where they do not have jobs, and they have no public transportation, and that is the only means of going from home to work to bring food to the table, it would be inhuman to take that car away or punish those who are engaging in this practice. And in exactly the same way, you can't fight corruption on an empty stomach. You cannot diminish corruption when it solves practical, tangible problems in everyday life. So when the infrastructure is not there, when the economy is not ready, when the political situation is not ripe, you cannot take wonderful rules and plans off the shelves simply because they're good ideas in abstract and apply them in places where they have no sense. So what is my recommendation and what is the answer to this? Collective action. Even when the government is not participating, it has been working in many parts of the world. Collective action deals with a problem where you can always expect that individuals will refrain from actions that are beneficial to them for the common good. So you need concerted effort on the basis of principles in the pursuit of a common goal, in the pursuit of fundamental change for integrity in business and in government. That is the promise where even the weaker players can participate and you can achieve a lot more. So whatever strategic planning necessary takes place, whatever progress is to be made in concert with, in parallel with educational reform, you gotta create a culture of integrity and you gotta start from schools and universities. You can start building islands of integrity and you can start building them together and you make that sustainable by adding the educational programs. In the meantime, you add legitimacy and credibility to the effort by measuring with performance indicators how progress is made so that you can explain, it can be accountable to everyone as you go. Now, there are different types of collective actions. Some of them are short-term, some of them are simple, others have multiple stakeholders. The degree of enforceability varies. There are 4 basic types that we can see in the next slide. The first one is anti-corruption declarations. Short-term, project-based ethical commitments. One example of that was in 2003. There was a project that was a waste incineration project in Frankfurt, in Germany. The second type is principle-based initiatives, where we have the long-term ethical commitment, and here the signatories commit not to engage in corruption in daily practices. The European aerospace defense industry is an example of that. The third type is an integrity pact, short-term, project-based agreement with an external monitor. And one example of that is happening actually, is agreed in principle in Attica with Transparency International. Brazil's Jogos Limpos, clean games, is another example of that. The fourth type, which I think leads to sustainable reform and change, is certifying business coalition. And that involves monitoring and certification of those who participate. So there is accountability, there is open government, there is openness about this. There is advocacy, there could be external communication, and boy, do we need communicating good news out of this place to the international community. Training, practical exchanges, best practices, all kinds of things that are accompanied also by audit checks and so on. This is something that we can do. We can do it. The International Anti-Corruption Academy, where I have the honor of having the endowed chair to do just this, research, training, and application of collective actions for business ethics and compliance, is offering exactly this. And I can give you, sitting here, a prediction that if any Greek actors commit to try it, to give it a shot, both the Anti-Corruption Academy and myself will be on your side. And this is as unambiguous a forecast as you can get out of this place. I think that given the disappointments that we had so far from the public sector, we can rely perhaps more, hopefully, from the private sector. Funds can be found. This is the chance to bring everything back up in Greece and lift it towards islands of integrity, culture of integrity in a sustainable way, working with people and whatever agency in government wishes to contribute and participate, and gradually bringing the whole government in. If we do this, it works. Otherwise, the next slide is going to show you what anti-corruption in Greece looks like from a Nordic perspective. And this is the way that one government is getting in the way of what the previous one was trying to go to. And thank you so much. That is the end of my presentation. The links, the links there are to my TED Talk, where you can see a few things about debt austerity and anti-corruption in Greece in a little more detail. Thank you.